Alrighty, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Broadband Heroes. And I am excited for another episode. We've got frequent co-host and partner in crime here, Mr. Brian Hollister from Bonfire, and our special guest today, Donald Ray from BAM Broadband. Guys, thanks so much for joining me today. Obviously, on Broadband Heroes, we just try to veer away from talking about the same old stuff. We're not going to be talking about fiber miles and grants and spectrum today. We have, not that that's not important, but today we're going to be really focusing in on a lot of what BAM Broadband does around the consumer experience. And we're going to talk about networks that are built and why they matter. Before we get started, Donald, why don't you just give a quick overview of who you are and what BAM does?
Yeah, so my name is Donald Ray. I'm the Senior Vice President of Corporate Development here at BAM. BAM is a regional fiber provider. We operate networks just outside of the surrounding the Denver metro and then surrounding the Phoenix metros. Our real focus these days has largely been on fiber expansion, but we do also operate fixed wireless networks just kind of on the eastern side of the Denver metro and then kind of in the North Phoenix area, pushing up into Cave Creek, Arizona, and some of those more rural areas up there.
Awesome. Well, obviously, I know you guys are doing some great work out there, so we're excited to get into that. Without further ado, Mr. Brian Hollister, I think people know who you are, but let's do it anyway.
Sure, hopefully, after all of these, that they know who I am. But obviously, CEO of Bonfire, and Bonfire works with folks like BAM, where we work and help support sustainable broadband. And our company helps in everything from feasibility, engineering, construction management, and in some cases, we'll even manage assets. But mostly that would only be on the public side, where they want to own those assets and need a little help to monetize them. But super excited to have Donald on today. I love your marketing, right? BAM, good internet. I mean, cool. I mean, you can Nick could go nuts with all of this. I mean, we love it. We love it. I'd love to know, does BAM stand for anything specifically? Are those initials, Donald?
So it actually does. And I'll give you guys the quick kind of 30-second story here. So first, our Senior Director of Marketing, Kelly Carper, is fantastic. So you have her to thank for all of that. I am not the creative brain in the house. The short story here is BAM actually stands for Broadband Access Management, which was really something that just existed kind of in the background. We acquired two companies, one in Arizona, one in Colorado. And we were sitting around thinking about what the next step was as we started to merge those two companies together. And we hired outside firms. We went through a whole creative process, everything from if BAM were a movie star, who would they be? If BAM were a vehicle, what kind of vehicle would it be? And, we got some really great feedback on potential names. And a couple of us were sitting in a room one day and said, we actually have BAM. Like, it's great. It's the other things were good, but it is better than those things. Why don't we just do that? And so we actually had the BAM name for about, a year and a half or so before we realized that we had the best name in our back pocket already.
Isn't it funny how that works? Like, you can spend so much time on things like that. It's like naming your child.
Yeah.
You just don't throw it out there. You got hopefully you put a little thought into that, right?
Most of even our company, what BAM stands for, they'd be pretty hard pressed to remember that it's Broadband Access Management. But it certainly has a good kick to it. It's one of those like impact words that just fits in all kinds of great marketing.
Absolutely.
Well, since you did bring up the comparing it to a superhero, I'm going to start off with a little bit of a lightning round, have a little fun, loosen you guys up a little bit. So if broadband were a food, what would it be? Fast food, steak dinner, your grandma's casserole? What would broadband be?
I think it would be Chinese food, largely because I've had Chinese food that is the best in the world, second to none. I've had Chinese food that it was questionable as to whether or not I was even going to eat it once it got in front of me. Broadband has a lot of different flavors just like that.
That's a great response. The first, I'm just going to tell you the first thing that literally popped in my head, and Nick doesn't prep me for this stuff, but things just come out. I don't know if they always make sense, but I was thinking warm apple pie with vanilla ice cream, because there's just not another perfect dessert out there. And when you have fiber connected to your home, there's nothing else better than that, right? So that's just what popped in my head, and I might have to figure that out tonight. Bring that back to the
Chinese
table.
Food and warm apple pie, man. That is BAM, good combination right there.
Well, and it could be there's Chinese food sitting kind of to the left of my desk here, about 30 centimeters away or so. So,
all right, let's keep going on the lightning round. So what the first word do you think of when I say cable company?
Unhappy customers.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just old.
Okay, old and unhappy. All right. What's the worst hidden fee you've ever seen in the broadband space?
I had experience with a company, this goes back a couple years, but we had kind of a hidden wire maintenance fee that got put out there. It was a terrible fee because it was meant to display service call charges, and it did not always display service call charges. So you kind of needed a whole book to figure out what this fee was for and what it was actually doing on your bill, especially since depending on what package you selected, it may or may not randomly arrive and surprise you.
I'm not going to name any names, but there was a carrier out there that was obviously delivering, a router and a Wi-Fi device like most ISPs obviously do, and obviously was integrated. And they would tell you that even though they deliver that box, they're not responsible for any of the Wi-Fi. So, it wasn't like today where you're getting managed Wi-Fi and we're just making it so much easier for clients. They literally wouldn't even take any questions on it. And it was like, wait a second, you guys are, pretty serious carrier out there. How can you put this box out there and say you're not responsible for it? But that's literally what the contract said is we're not responsible for anything in your Wi-Fi. So if you're calling us with Wi-Fi issues, sorry, you would have to jump onto this maintenance plan to even allow us to, answer any questions. And looking back at that now, it's like, that was mind boggling, right? Everything is connected Wi-Fi. Like, are you, what would you do with that? But, obviously things have evolved.
Thankfully. All right, last question, the lightning round. Would you rather have, gentlemen, blazing fast speeds and horrible service or decent speeds and amazing service?
I would choose decent speeds and great customer service every single time.
100%.
Okay.
There's just too often things come up, right? And you just need some help. You need to talk to somebody, right? And if you don't have them there, that's a huge mess.
Obviously, Donald, we talked about, we do love your marketing. We love the messaging, dealing with ISPs and understanding this industry for a long time. Your guys' strategy and where your positioning really is around, it's really kind of bold. It's bold promises, no contracts, no hidden fees. It's a very different approach, very direct, customer friendly approach. So I'm curious, what was the idea behind that strategy? That's because that is a very specific direction as a service provider and working with a consumer residential market.
The founding of our company, we have a great CEO. His name's Jack Koo. He's an industry veteran, has been around for a long time. A lot of companies that have been successful that you'd be familiar with if I named them. He just had an idea to start a company as he looked out at the kind of legacy cable co companies, legacy telco companies, and said, hey, there's this gap out there for service that not only works when it needs to work and is reliable, but also is delivered in a way that is very transparent, meaning why can't we just have a number on a bill? Why does it have to be so many different line items? And why does it have to be, sometimes fees seem to show up. I'm a cable customer myself because I don't have fiber at my home. Why do some fees show up on this month's bill, but not show up on last month's bill, so on and so forth? And then secondly, why is it just so dang hard to just talk to someone like a normal human and say, this is the problem I'm trying to solve, help me solve it, and then make that transaction? He had that vision and he put BAM together, and I'm fortunate to be a part of it. But, I think at the end of the day, that is our whole claim to fame, right? At the end of the day, there's a lot of fiber companies out there. There's a lot of great technology out there. It's not necessarily to sit here and say one fiber company is better technologically than another or something like that. At the end of the day, I like to think of it as the kind of the Chick-fil-A approach to customer service, which is when you pull up to the window, we greet you and we say, hey, you asked for exactly this. We gave you exactly this. Here's the exact cost of that thing, and we'll get it to you quickly, and you can go on about your business and not have to think about it. Because the reality is, if people, there you go.
It's our pleasure, right? That's what I love. It's our pleasure. Thank you. Our pleasure.
Exactly. The reality is that broadband, like any other number of services or utilities, if it's something people have to sit around and think about working all the time, then something is wrong. It should really just work.
And this applies, I think, both to building a network, building a network, and as well as serving, is transparency. So how important for both of you guys, how important is transparency in this process, and does it actually pay off?
Transparency is one of the most important things you can do. As a company, we operate in a lot of territories where we are, being a regional player, we are in a big pond here with a lot of big fish, right? Large cable cos, large telcos, other much larger fiber providers. And, what we have found has worked for us, 10 times out of 10 is really being transparent with people. We don't, I was sitting in a meeting with some unnamed companies, or companies I won't name, here last week. And one of the things that was said by a company as we were walking with a municipality through the construction process was, people won't even know we came through. And it's like, no, that's not true. That's not what it's gonna look like whatsoever. So, our message was slightly different. Hey, people are going to know we were there. Whether we want them to or not, it's a different story, but people are going to know that we had drills in their front yards and those kinds of things. But here's how we're transparent about what's really happening, and here's how we guide that message for homeowners. And that wins out in the end, because the more transparent we are with homeowners about what's going to happen in their front yard, the happier they are and the more likely they are to convert to subscribers at the end of the day. And you could apply that same scenario to really any transaction in the business.
100%. Internally here at Bonfire, we always talk about, our guarantee to the folks we work with is we want them to have the very best possible experience. It doesn't mean that we're going to come and go and you're not even going to know we were there. But at the same time, we're going to try to do our very best that it's a wonderful experience. And obviously, as you know, Donna, when you're building these big networks and you're tearing up yards and streets and all kinds of things like that, people obviously get aggravated, and there's a lot of challenges with that. But if you can be upfront with them and let them know you're coming, educate them on the process, and of course, let them understand what the end product's going to look like, meaning that we're going to leave it better than it was in the first place. That's a huge aspect, right? But it's also every single step of the way, right? It's working with our partners that are out there doing the construction, right? The municipalities, everyone that's engaged in it. We're never saying ever that this is easy work, but we're always saying that we can make sure that we stand out by giving folks the very best possible experience. And that's being very truthful with them, right? When we can align on the greater goal of what's going to happen, then as the challenges come up, we just knock them down together, right? Whether that's us and an ISP, the municipality, all the jurisdictions we work with. It's like when you have that and you're focused on it, I mean, it's a huge difference.
When you think about, again, back to the transparency, is building the network, serving the networks, there's a lot of complexity. There's a lot of complexity that the consumer or the residential person, even business person, doesn't see. Is there any part of that process that you think, man, I just wish they actually did understand a little bit more of that process?
I think it probably goes back to probably the construction process more than anything. The engineering and construction process. If there were things I wish people would see sometimes, it's, interacting with jurisdictions is very complex. There's a lot of different needs and requirements there. So when we have a homeowner who says, well, we just don't understand. Why don't you just build it? Just build it today and get it in front of our house and get us service. Sometimes you want to say, well, I wish it was that easy. And if I could snap my fingers, it would be that easy. But here's some of the complexities in there. The other side of that is, kind of ties into that exact same thing. Sometimes homeowners, they don't know what they don't know during the construction process. So sometimes we get some really far out there requests from people that are, hey, we don't want you to really dig in our front yard. So could you just deliver it to us wirelessly? Like, could we have you build fiber where you need to and then deliver it wireless from the neighbor's yard? Or things like that. So sometimes, there's a little bit of technical education, even more so than just the technical, how does fiber work? What are you going to get delivered to your home? Those kind of things. It's really more the civil engineering component to what it takes to build a fiber network. Not everybody knows.
I would totally agree. We deal with it all the time, right? Outside of that, once you have the connection, obviously everything that BAM stands about is a frictionless model once we have the connection, right? Like, it sounds like if I actually call your, customer service number, a human answers, right? That right already is a huge positive start. And you can make so much of that after the fact frictionless, but it's the exact opposite of frictionless to get, the construction done, right? Yeah. And that is the key. But I feel like when you do take that time time to walk them through and talk to them. It's a huge deal. And the challenge is everyone wants to go, 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 go. And sometimes you just got to stop and talk to folks along the way. And what we find, and I'm sure you do too, Donald, is that's the best time to sell folks. When the big yellow Tonka toys start rolling in, that's when people want to sign up. It's also when obviously we get the most frustration from the community as well. And you just have to be patient and make sure that you're doing a good job helping people understand what's happening, right? We're not just purposely tearing your yard up for the heck of it.
Yeah, I think what's helped us so much is some of this is just the benefit of having communities that are being tied together in a very proximity that's really close together, right? For the most part, whether it be in Colorado or Arizona, even though we are building in multiple jurisdictions, just the way that we are aligned in those metro areas, most of our communities are no more than about 30 minutes from where our call center actually sits. So, the benefit to that is if you are in Highlands Ranch, Colorado, where we are actively constructing, and you call our call center in Colorado, which actually sits at Centennial, well, there are people in that call center that work, that live in Highlands Ranch. So we get that when people call and say, hey, I'm on, East Main Street. We have people that say, yeah, I was just on that street 2 days ago. I went to the Shell station right around the corner, and then I went to Target and all these things. So I think, even that level of local service brings a different take on transparency sometimes than people are used to, right? It's not, plenty of companies have good customer service, so you can reach out to and they want to take care of your issue. But when it's someone who brings their kids to the same park sometimes that you bring your kids to, it's just a whole different level of experience and openness that happens in those conversations.
Yeah, I think a lot of companies, can have great customer service, but you can't fake being local. When you run into someone at the gas station, right? Grocery store, they see your trucks, right? It's like, no, we live here. I live in the community. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, we used to do we called it the T-shirt test, right? It was the way to feel about your company, and your internal and external kind of culture and brand presence was, are you comfortable putting on your company T-shirt and going to the grocery store? And, look, the reality is I've been places where the answer is no. Like, please get me out of this shirt before I have to go to the grocery store, because I'm just going to get bombarded with questions about why'd my bill change and nobody took care of my problem and that kind of stuff. And, I think what we're trying to build here is a culture that says, hey, look, we want our employees to feel comfortable enough that they're going out in their BAM gear on the weekends, right? It's please take this free clothing and advertise for us in the community and be proud to wear it. And so far, that's working for us.
That's awesome. Awesome.
It is awesome.
I love that. We're going to steal that one, Nick. T-shirt contest.
There's a lot of Bonfire swag. Let's talk a little bit about a little bit technical though. When we think about what a customer is promised when they sign up for service or when they think about having broadband versus what the network can actually deliver. It's an industry problem, and I think it becomes a community problem as well. And I'm just curious from your guys' perspective, what's the mismatch? Or do you guys see a mismatch sometimes?
Nick, are you talking about kind of like the Wi-Fi versus obviously fiber gigabit speeds?
Yeah. I think that is exactly where my brain went was Wi-Fi. We've done a good job. It takes a lot of customer education up front. You have to invest some minutes in it that whether they're always productive or not, I guess is a different conversation. We try and actually give our technicians, particularly our installation technicians, additional time when they go do installs to walk through exactly this question. And, the mismatch there sometimes is somebody says, I pay for 2 gigabit service. And next thing you know, they're on some laptop that is 8 years old. They're on the far end of the house. They didn't really want to spend any money on Wi-Fi. They've got some horizontally laid out home, so it's a long way to the other side. Next thing you know, and sometimes it's not that they're getting poor quality of service or anything like that. Sometimes it quite literally is, well, I pay for 2 and I'm getting 1 on the far end of the house. And it's really just having to go back and educate people around that, because the reality is, all other things being equal, well, any provider that you work with is going to have that exact same issue, right? That is not unique to our company. It is not unique to the Xfinities of the world or the Quantums of the world or the Googles of the world. We all have that exact same problem. And in, 18 years in this industry, I still haven't figured out how to solve it. And I don't think anybody else has either, it seems.
Is that an opportunity that does BAM take advantage of that in the essence of managed Wi-Fi, extenders, things like that?
We do. So we actually include, depending on the home size, we actually include extenders as part of our standard package.
That's
And the
pretty
general thought there was, look, you never solve for 100% of problems, but our general thought here is at the end of the day, the cost of that, we call them pods, but the cost of that Wi-Fi extender or that pod is so severely offset by delivering a poor customer experience and seeing churn and those kind of things as a result of it. Like, as a guy who lives and breathes the numbers all day, every day, you take someone who could have potentially been a longtime subscriber and you let them churn out because you didn't want to give them a $30, $40 Wi-Fi extender, you're going to wish you did at the end of the day to make that experience that much better. We would rather front load that experience for them, not make them beg for it, not make it contingent on the amount of money they are willing to spend, and hit them with hidden fees or what they would consider to be hidden fees or any of that stuff. When we walk away, we just want it to work. And for larger homes, we're willing to include that up front just to deliver that experience off the bat.
That's awesome. I just see so many different providers trying to make more money off of that. And it's like, well, wait a second, is that the client's problem? I mean, one could argue that, hey, especially in the Phoenix area, right? Ranch homes, crazy spread out. My in-laws live there. I know exactly what you're talking about. Like it's a 10-minute walk from one side of the house to the other, right? I totally see that. But so often that's like viewed as, hey, that's an upgrade. That's ARPU. I love the fact that you guys just run right at the problem and try to help them solve it as just part of the service. That's pretty cool. Good job.
That is awesome. More generically to the industry, right? Your point was there's cable cos, there's ISPs, there's everybody out there, and the consumer has changed, right? The consumer, as much as we're joking a little bit about like they don't understand how the network gets there, consumers by and large, I think, are probably more savvy than they've ever been. They use the internet more, they use mobile devices more, but I'm not sure that the expectations probably haven't shifted as much. And I'm curious from your guys' perspective, what, as a consumer that wants broadband, what should my expectations be of a provider?
Going back to what I said earlier, I think first the expectation should be it's great to advertise that, looking at our own marketing, we are local. We will answer your call quickly. We will take care of you. We will do all of those things. The real expectation for a subscriber, though, should be that only matters when they really need it. The expectation should be that they don't have to talk to us all the time. If they know our people by name, I've worked at places.
That'd be a great tagline. You don't ever need to talk to us.
Yeah. Look, I've worked at places and they've got their favorite service technician. And it's like, hey guys, that's not a good thing. Like, I appreciate that person is friendly and all of that stuff, but that's not a good thing that people know who we are. In a perfect world, it is just like, when you go home and you flip your light switch, you are shocked when it doesn't actually turn a light on, right? Because that's such a rare occurrence.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, my electricity is so stable, and I've experienced so few outages that if I turned the light on and it didn't work, I would assume my wife didn't pay the bill more than I would that we had an outage or something like that. That'd be where my head would go. Broadband should largely be the exact same way, right? You come home, you pull your phone out, it's already connected to your Wi-Fi, and it just works without the rest of it. Now, the flip side of that is when you do have to interact with us, I think you should expect that you can talk to one person who can actually fix your problem. Or figure out how to tie you to the person that can fix the problem. I have certainly myself played the 3 and 4 day game of, well, it's some other department. You got to wait for that department to call you back. And then the ticket didn't transfer. So you got to start from scratch, and you go round and round with this. And, I think it should be when you do have to pick up the phone, you're answered quickly. You get somebody who can actually take care of you and doesn't give you the runaround.
So I would be remiss if I didn't ask this or somehow weave this in. AI, obviously, is a huge part of our world now. It's used in business to help ideally improve service, customer service, improve margins, et cetera. How do you guys see in that example, when we're talking about a customer experience, do you see AI as something that's going to help or hinder this model experience that we've just talked about for a broadband customer?
I slightly view AI as being supplemental to the real people needed to do the work. So it's not, I'm not one of those people that believes that AI doesn't have its place, anything else. So when I think about the benefits of AI in the business, I think about it more from a technical perspective that says, hey, I can press one button and it's going to go out across the network and it's going to do all the things and all of the different systems where things needs to happen, right? So think about companies whose maybe their billing system is separate from their provisioning systems and those kind of things. And AI can help tie that together. Where I do not think that AI is the answer is when someone calls in for customer support and the first thing that they get is some bot. I tend to think that most consumers are not going to view that well. Going back to the fact that I'm a cable subscriber, I went to upgrade my package the other day and I went through the chatbot experience. And I think it would have, I bet it took me 30 minutes longer trying to do it that way than if I could just talk to a person and say, hey, change this to that. I'm willing to pay the extra and it be done. So, I think AI has its place. I just also think that, people who think that AI could potentially be a substitute for good customer service, they are going to find out that is probably not viewed that way by most consumers.
I would totally agree. For the longest time, right, the call centers were being obviously outsourced to different countries because of lower labor rates. And it's like, I never got that. It was like, wait a second, isn't that like your most valuable asset? Right. I mean, like when we need help, to your point, Donald, I want to be able to talk to someone that's going to help me. And if we're having a, tough time on language barrier or things like that. So now we've seen that now migrate. And I've experienced this in literally the last 10 days where I have a Ford and I have a Toyota, different dealerships, called in on both of them, and there was AI. And on the first one, I could never get past, like, I have other things to add to the list, right? Literally at all. And then had to call and then force my call to sales, because sales always picks up the phone, right? And then say, hey guys, I need some help here. I can't get past your AI. It's crushing me. And then this morning, I needed to take the Toyota in, and same with AI. It was honestly much cleaner. And as soon as I needed to add the second thing, it just transferred me to somebody. But it's like, why are we doing that? This is your most valuable asset. I want to talk to someone that sounds like they care about me and is willing to help. And if they have AI and they can answer the question faster, that's the secret of AI, right? Run test, I mean, calling into service providers in the past as someone that works in the industry and having to go through even when you're talking to someone and they have to go through every single step, even though you're telling them you've already rebooted your router, you've done all of these things, and you still have to walk all through that. Is anything more painful? Right? It's like, come on, just talk to me. Let's have a conversation. Can you recognize that I've already told you I've restarted the router? Can we skip that piece, please? Right? I mean, it's.
There should be a button where you said if you're in the industry, click here, and then it skips ahead.
Oh my God, I just want to hit like the nuclear button on some of these folks, right? Like, gosh, you're killing me. And it just seems like it's such a basic element. I understand that there's cost there, but oh man, it's really refreshing talking to you and seeing BAM really does have a different approach.
You just kind of hit the nail on the head. Like, first of all, from a service perspective, I do the exact same thing. I'll tell my wife as I'm chatting with a chat bot, like, these people don't know who they're dealing with here. Don't tell me that those levels to my modem are good. I've been there already. But the flip side of that is, look, some of these companies that spout kind of AI and it being kind of the future, especially for customer service platforms, I will believe that when they push their highest revenue, highest ARPU customers to AI. But if you look at every company that's starting to implement some of this, particularly in call centers, et cetera, look, that enterprise customer who's going to pay this really high kind of monthly recurring revenue, they don't get an AI chatbot. It's the guy who's paying $30 for internet who's getting the AI chatbot. The real money still gets a person, and I think that means something.
That's very telling. It's very telling.
Exactly.
All right, guys, let's jump ahead. Let's look to the future. Broadband, from an infrastructure perspective, what's being built, what's being funded, what's being created is obviously, especially when it's fiber, is creating things that we probably aren't even invented yet. And then on the residential side, that Donald, you mentioned about what's in the home and what's happening. If we zoom out 3, 5, 10 years from now, I'm curious. I mean, does the concept of, hey, I'm going to buy a fiber line go away? Does the future hold a different way to buy service, and what does broadband mean because it can do so many things?
My take on this, and I think the industry is already grappling with this and has been for the last couple years, the first real push in the industry was about speed. I remember when I started in the industry in 2007, I was 19, had never worked in the industry, having the conversation with people. We had at my cable company, we had 1 meg, 5 meg, and 10 meg. And we used to joke about what like data hungry monsters are ordering the 10 meg. Like what are people using this for? And, now we're having the exact same conversation, right? Many providers, ourselves included, have 1 meg, 2 meg, 4 meg, 5, 6, 8, 10, so on and so forth. And, you see gig. Yeah, I'm sorry. So you see the trials happening right now, about 25 gig residential service and all of those things. And I think the reality is the speed argument is going to lose its luster very quickly, particularly as other technologies catch up. Like, as DOCSIS 4 and other, kind of legacy, cable technologies and those things also provide symmetrical speeds and all of those things. The argument is really going to shift and become, in my opinion, about bandwidth more than it is about speed. It's going to be this is the amount of connected devices I have in my home, and what's the best service to make those actually work. Forget getting 10 gig to every little device in the house. It's going to be, hey, the average home is going to have 50 connected devices in it. Mine might be there already. It's going to be about having steady, reliable quality of service on each one of those devices more than it's going to be about the speed race, in my opinion. And then I think outside of that, zooming out from the residential perspective, I really think that it's going to be, we're going to start to delve more into AI and, certain types of network monitoring. In a past life, we dealt with a lot of people who were interested in broadband for electric charging for vehicles and how that could enable certain things. If you look, there are people that are integrating it into everything from traffic lights in a larger manner than they already have been, to parking meters, to all of those things. So I think for commercial grade broadband, it's really going to start to become more about kind of an interconnected, smart city, smart everything type approach.
100%. I couldn't agree anymore. Some of the things I think we're also going to see is, where if you're buying a home, it should be mandated that, when you're looking at that home, that part of the process of selling a home is that you're actually including the broadband service providers that are available in that area, because it's obviously such an important utility. And we're actually, working with some states right now on some of those types of approaches. Like, hey guys, like, I don't want to buy a house unless I know exactly what's already been qualified at that home up front, right? That's super important. And we've seen too many folks get in trouble where they, fall in love with a particular property and then are really upset because they don't have adequate speeds or adequate service, those kinds of things. So I think we're going to see a much more transparency, out there as well. And I think a lot of the differentiating factor, will go back to service, though.
It's interesting. I'm just thinking, the term smart city, it's like you go down to the micro level of like, it's smart home, smart. Now it's just smart person. Like you literally, and all the devices, we started with, I'm going to connect these cities, connect a building, connect a home. But to your point, like there's so many devices we have on just us as an individual. I think the idea in the future for us to truly be able to walk in anywhere, and that the term broadband almost goes away, right? Like it's not about broadband anymore. It's about just, I am now enabled. I'm connected, right? To do whatever I want to do. Like that's the future. It just works. Yeah. And you don't have to call somebody. Well, guys, let's, I want to end. Thank you so much. This has been great insight about just a lot of different topics. I want to end with a lightning round, a little bit more fun. So broadband today, is it a utility, human right, lifestyle, or other?
I tend to err that it is as close to a utility as you could possibly get these days. If you think about your life without broadband and having that type of connectivity, I think even just societally, we would fall apart at this point. Just think about if you didn't have broadband and you were looking for a job. how you would even go about that, because I'm not even sure what businesses take paper applications anymore or any of those things. So, and you could apply that to so many things, that broadband is just it's no longer for just getting on and surfing Facebook or playing, what was it back in the day? Farmville. That was the big thing when I was installing cable. Now it is truly everything in our lives revolves around us being connected.
Yeah, I would just say I think it's a right. As an American paying taxes, property taxes, it should be a right that it's available to you, period, right? I mean, utility, a right, either way, everyone should have it. Everyone should have a reliable connection to their home, period.
The broadband buzzword you would happily kill. You can't say bead.
Yeah. Well, that's where everybody's brain immediately goes. There's a word that a lot of companies use, and it probably is great marketing for them. So I won't poo-poo on it too much. But a lot of people refer to their connected communities as fiberhoods, and I cannot stand the term fiberhood.
That's funny. I have not heard that one.
Oh, I have. I know what he's talking about.
Brian, you got a word?
Oh, man. Honestly, I was going to say bead. I can't.
Okay.
Wait.
If you could put one billboard about broadband in any community, what would it say? And you can't say, bam, good broadband here.
Oh, I was thinking about the shameless plug, but I decided against it.
Yeah, you could go with that one. That's fine.
I think it would be to encourage people to, participate in the expansion of broadband.
Yeah, and get involved.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm a dad with young kids. I'd be thinking about, internet is a lot more than reels, right? Take it to the next level, right? I mean, I literally just said this, this morning, one of my children, it's like, man, if you could just be spending 10% of that time that you're on that phone learning something, just think how smart you'd be.
The last question, what's one word to describe our industry right now?
Obnoxious.
Yeah, I was going to go with insane. So you kind of took that one from me, but
sounds like we're pretty aligned.
Yeah. Well, guys, thank you so much, Donald, Brian. I mean, obviously, lots of great conversation. You both are obviously evangelists for broadband, and I think for the listeners that are watching or listening, key takeaway of this is, services. Broadband is more than just technology. Broadband service is a huge, huge amount of that around delivery, transparency, and keeping promises. So thank you both for the conversation, the insights. And until next time, please stay connected, stay inspired, and you can find us wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Dan.
yeah, thanks.